Ethan Serrano here. This is my first time ever screen recording on my Mac, so I apologize if it's a bit clunky. Anyways, this is for the skill knowledge demonstration for week 1, specifically the Excel portion. I'll also be uploading a video for the SPSS version as well for this assignment. So starting off with the Excel worksheet, I know that the first step you wanted us to do was kind of clean the data a bit, get rid of, or I guess screen for any outliers and or missing data. So I know there's a couple of different ways you can do it in Excel, but the way I did it was to do just some conditional formatting. So I've already done it to the set here, but essentially I just highlighted the entirety of the set. So from work attitudes question 1 to 15, and then all the way down to the bottom, I did conditional formatting, highlighted cells, and then you can actually just do greater than, so to check for any outliers or ones that are out of that 1 to 7 scale. You can do anything that's greater than 7. You can highlight it a color, so I did it like that. And then you can do anything less than 1, which would be if someone somehow got a 0. And then you can also actually just, another way too is find and replace all of the missing values, but if you conditional format and you do less than 0, it actually also highlights the blank cells, I found out. So that's what I ended up doing for this one. I followed a similar rule to what you had mentioned in class about in a data set, sometimes you can get away with having them maybe miss one of the questions. So that was the rule I followed as well. So anyone who had more than one missing value in the entirety of the 15 questions, I went ahead and just deleted out of the set. So I have here the original N from the data set that I downloaded, the .csv work attitudes, was 426. After I went ahead and took out those who had more than one missing value, it actually subtracted about 15, so 411 total. And if we do a quick scroll here, we can see this person was kept in, they had a missing value, same here. So there was a couple sprinkled here and there that did have the one missing value, but for the most part, the entirety of the sample had answered all 15 questions. Moving on then to the next part of the assignment, you had asked for us to score the items and aggregate them into a total score. So I wasn't exactly too sure if you meant an actual total score like a sum or if you meant just a mean, but I went ahead and did both anyways. So the way I did this was just a simple sum formula. So I did equals sum and then just dragged across my range. So from B2 all the way to P2, which would be from question 1 to 15. That adds it up. I'm getting some sort of error here, but I'm not too sure exactly why it's coming up. But either way, I double checked it, at least on the first few lines, just hand calculating it. It appears to be correct for the sum. So I went ahead and dragged that down, the formula, and so it took it down for the entirety of the 411 folks. That's that column here. And then for the mean, I did another pretty simple formula. I just did equals average. This one being that same range where I just dragged it across, and then it pretty much just gives a mean of the scores. I did find out that if you do an equals average and there is a missing value, that it kind of just skips over this, so it doesn't even include it as a value. So rather than making it a 0 and having it kind of make your mean go a little lower, I don't know exactly how it works, but I would assume that it just takes it as if there's only 14 questions instead of 15, because like if we put a 0 here right now just to test it, we can see that the value changed and the mean went down to I think it's this one. Yeah, this one, it went down to 0.50, whereas if it was blank, it's 5.36. So I'm assuming that it just takes out the 1 and it makes it 14, but either way, that's kind of how we did it, or at least, that's how I did it. And then for standard deviation, another pretty straightforward formula is just the equals standard deviation here, and then same thing, dragging across. So got the standard deviations for each of the items as well, for each of the candidates that went through. And then over here, just a couple of general descriptives or frequencies, you might say as well. Here we have the total score mean, so this is actually going to be for this column here. So for everyone, I just averaged out you can see it in the formula here, equals average Q2 to Q412. So just grabbing everyone in this column pretty much and averaging it. So that was 72.16. Now this can be a bit misleading because obviously that's including people who have missing values. So this person here in row 33, their total score was 75, but if they had answered question 3 here, perhaps their score would be higher and the total score mean would be a little bit higher on average as well. So that's also why, as we'll see in a moment, that when we get to the histograms, that I decided to do a histogram of the total score, meaning the actual sums as well as the means. But either way, this is what it looks like even with the missing values, and then here's a standard deviation for that. Again, I just did an equal standard deviation of this whole entire row. I was able to calculate the max by doing equals max of the range, and it gives me the maximum value, which was 99, and then the minimum, which was 37. Moving on to the right here, I also decided to just give a couple of brief and rudimentary statistics by item. So I have just the means by question, so 1 through 15, and then I have the standard deviations as well on the right. We'll see when we get to the SPSS output in the second video. We can kind of compare these a little bit, but I already went ahead and checked, and they are pretty accurate. Like for this one, I think it was like 0.64 and then a bunch of decimals. That would have rounded up to 0.65 or something like that, but Excel ended up spitting out 0.164 or 1.64, excuse me. So it's pretty close, kind of similar to what we were doing in class the other day, where in R it was slightly off. Could be something with the formulas, or it could be that the fact that the missing data is being included. Either way, this has ended up kind of coming out of it. Just a brief glance at the data here, we can see that there are some items that have really high averages. So question 1 in particular, an average of over 6, meaning that people are almost always answering on that higher end of the scale. And then we have other items down like question 9 here, which is almost below 2 here at 2.02 on average. So that tells us a couple things. That means perhaps, question 9 here, or even, the ones that are also in the 2s and the average is like 12 and 15, perhaps they should be rescored. It also could mean that, maybe they aren't an adequate measure of work attitudes, or, perhaps they could be changed in a way that would get them a little bit closer to the rest of the items. I don't think I ran a reliability analysis in my SPSS one, but I would wager that perhaps these would throw off the reliability just a tad bit, considering they are a little bit drastically lower compared to the rest of the data. But anyways, that could be something we could do on the side after the assignment. But anyways, we'll go ahead and get into the histograms then. So like I said, I went ahead and did 2. So on the left here, we have the histogram of the total scores. I wasn't sure how to figure out how to mess around with these bin averages, so it's a bit wonky. So like 37 to 41.8. Don't really know why it's like that, but we can see here there's only one of those, and then it kind of gradually goes up, 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 and you can see we do get kind of a nice bell curve, which is good. This meaning that the majority of people were falling in this 70.6 to 75.4 range. With a couple of obviously outliers like that 99, and then down here that 37, which was the minimum as well. The obvious limitation of this one is that it doesn't really account for the missing data folks who have the one missing. So that's probably the reason why we're seeing a slight difference on the right here, because this one's including the mean scores. And as we went over earlier, the mean in Excel kind of excludes that missing data. So we can see here pretty similar, just a couple of shifts slightly up and down based off of some of these columns. Like this mean one in the middle is a little bit higher, with these two next to it a little bit lower. So, but either way, we can see that the data was normally distributed, which is pretty good. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the Excel piece. The histograms there kind of cover the third part of the assignment you would like us to talk about, which is describing the distribution of total scores. So that was all I saw for the assignment. That's kind of all I went through. And I know I'm kind of already making this a little bit long. I can see how it can be difficult to lecture now, going on some tangents. But yeah, I'll end it here for the Excel one, and then we'll move on into the SPSS one next.